there, boys and girls. Welcome to this week's episode of Hollow Weekly, the week of Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Lots of time to watch horror movies.
Yes.
That's a good point.
There is a movie we're thankful for.
There is a movie where, well, you know, I was going to start the episode with, you know, at first I was afraid. I was terrified. Because that is the topic of this episode.
I was
this week.
hearing this song in my head, though.
Yeah, I can't. I thought, you know what? I thought I had like a shit-eating grin as soon as you started the movie. I was like, I know how I'm going to start this episode. But then the idea of Thanksgiving dinner kicked in, and I was like, whew.
Yep, that's right.
You're going to win. You're going to win over that one. But this week, we are reviewing Terrified. And
the Argentinian horror film that's currently, as of when this recording, streaming on Shudder.
Yeah, and you can't find character names anywhere online, not even in the film credits.
Nope.
We were like, what were their names? So, like, you know, we could say it, and then we looked. We scrubbed the internet for like 2 minutes.
Yep.
Nothing. So we're
going to be referring to them by their roles, not by...
Yeah.
Right.
So, but... For a movie named Terrified, you gotta deliver. Like you can't.
Yeah, that's a ballsy name to start
right?
with. Right, exactly.
Yeah, and I looked, and
or it's a DTV like.
Yeah.
Right. Like, or you don't have to deliver it all because everyone knows it's gonna be crap, and then like whatever.
Exactly. Another Terrified came up, but I think it said it was 1968, so it's been a while.
Mm-hmm.
But and when I looked up the director, this was they had only done one other thing before. Mm-hmm. So. Woof. And right now, before as we're recording this, it had like a 89% Rotten Tomatoes with like a high 70s audience score. So it's pretty good. And this is a Shudder exclusive, right now?
Well, yeah, I think it's. I didn't look on Amazon, but it's definitely like obviously because I love Shudder and I have it. That's where I saw it. But I don't know, but I know it's currently on Shudder. And the funny thing is, doing this podcast and running the Facebook page and Instagram and all that stuff for the podcast, we get this question, I would say once every 2 weeks, right? We get someone comes into our group or comes over to the page and comments and asks, is Shudder worth it? Or what are some recommendations you have for things that are on Shudder, right? Mm-hmm. And then they do it for all the other stuff, Netflix, everything. Like, how
cool is it? I'm just thinking like now we have like the Netflix, but we have just now that the Blockbuster's gone. And like having that experience to like grab something like I don't know, Shudder I feel like is at first I wasn't sure. I was like, okay, horror Netflix, let's see, okay, pretty cool. But now it's like solidified its place of like I don't know, it's just filling my heart of like horror fan needs.
Yeah, and you can tell when people have the right intentions as horror curators. Like you definitely get that vibe from Fangoria, and you get the vibe from Shudder that the people curating it care. Mm-hmm. That they have quality and things that are interesting, and they don't have all of one kind of movie. They've got a broad, whatever. So this isn't a paid commercial for Shudder. The point is that we get this question a lot about what are the scariest things on X streaming service, right? And just so you guys know, as long as this movie's on Shudder, it will be one of the 10 most terrifying movies on Shudder. And when it comes to Netflix, it will be one of those 10 most terrifying movies on Netflix.
Question, yeah.
Right? Like, unless Netflix decides to just grab all the classics and have Exorcist and Jaws and Texas Chainsaw all at the same time, which they never do, this will be in the top 10 of the scariest movies on X streaming service. So we've got one of the blanks filled out for this question until this movie goes away. Yeah. Because it is great.
And the other thing that happened, at least this year with this film, and I kept getting confused constantly.
Yes.
People be like, have you seen Terrified? No.
Have you seen Terrifier?
Yeah, Terrifier. And I was like, are these two different films? I was like, is this the clown? Is this that clown film everyone's talking about?
Right.
And I was like, yeah, I've seen some clips. Yeah, I get it. Like, it's pretty cool. I'd like to see some more of this clown later on. But like... Yep. I knew going into it that like, we just finished watching it. It was my first time. Mm-hmm. I knew nothing going in.
All you knew is there wasn't a clown.
I knew there wasn't a clown. That's all I knew.
Right.
That's all I knew is there wasn't a clown. Yep. And I sort of got the feeling when the first few
Actually, I didn't even know there wasn't a clown. All you knew there wasn't Art the Clown.
Yeah, there could have been like a clown.
Right, exactly. You didn't know anything.
There could have been a clown.
Yes.
But going into it fresh, I mean, that's always like a good thing for most films.
Totally.
Except for like the random M. Night Shyamalan film where like knowing the twist for me like makes the movie.
Actually, you know what? I found a scientific study that says that a recent scientific study, I'm putting science in air quotes, you can't see it, but it was a study and it showed that people enjoy movies more when they've been spoiled.
Wow, because they had that one study that came out that was like spoilers don't affect how you feel.
This
about
one
the
actually
film.
says
so.
that
This is
it
a different.
increases the enjoyment people have.
Oh, I'm
so they
all
had
for
two
that.
groups watching movies, and they had the same backgrounds, the same demographics, and then they pulled them afterwards. And movies were slightly higher rated by people who knew the twist.
So did you know the ending of Terrified going into it?
I did not.
Oh, okay. I was good. Man, that would have been good. We could have been part of that case study right there.
We will though. We watch horror movies all the time.
That's true.
Right.
That's true. But going into it, not knowing what to expect, I am one happy effing camper at the end of this movie.
Yep.
And we watched it. So we went over to your place to watch it, and you have company over and all that other stuff.
Yep.
And even with other people talking, going up and down the stairs, grabbing some food and all that other stuff, it was still very scary.
Still held you, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it still scared the hell out of me, and I don't. It might help that I'm kind of a pussy when it comes to like jump scares and that kind of stuff.
And there are really effective jump scares in it.
the jump scares in this,
And
one.
they're done the right way. They're patient. They're not just. And they also, I saw. I want to give credit, so I'm going to say Nerd Writer, but it may not be. But I saw a really excellent short video about jump scares, and it was talking about how the best jump scares forward the plot. Right, so like a bad jump scare just doesn't do anything for the plot; it just startles you and then goes away.
yeah.
Right, but and then there was a great example that I can't remember right now, but the point of it was the reason this person in the movie reacted to the jump scare this way sets you up for later when they react to a similar thing again, but it's more stretched out. So the jump scare teed up what was coming. Right?
Yeah.
which is what happens in this movie. These jump scares are not just to
startle
startle you.
What I wish more horror films would do, because like you know how like sometimes when you're just sitting to yourself, you think about horror films and you try to think. You ever sit there and like try to think like what would scare me right now in this moment, and you try to think of the most horrifying thing to see if you get yourself chills. They did what I've thought about multiple times when he's in the car and you see something in the background
That was
blurry
so good.
running, and you're sitting there going like, "Is that what is that?" Look, because it looked like one of those trees from Lord of the Rings. I was like, "That's not a tree." And then by the time it got into focus, you're like, "Holy fuck, it's what that?" And then it smashes against the one, and you're like, "Ah!" Like, oh.
Absolutely amazing.
So I guess start from the beginning. Of
Well,
film,
yeah,
right?
yeah, for sure. But I can give a like real brief synopsis of it. But to finish up the thing about the jump scare thing, one of the things that what I thought was really cool about this was a lot of the jump scares in this movie are premised on that this is like a multi-dimensional horror thing, sort of like the Mist situation, right? So there's things happening, but you could be staring right at where something bad would be happening and not see it. And then if you changed your perspective on it, you would see it. If you get a different angle in the same area, you're seeing it, right? So a lot of the jump scares in this were built like that way, right? But one of the best jump scares, which I know got you because I watched you react to it, which was across between the two houses and the window, and he kept looking back and forth, left and right through the window.
God.
But that's what I mean is that's a great, really effective jump scare. But in the lesser director's hands, they would have executed it just to make you jump. But in this one, it made you distrust everywhere else anyone looked for the whole rest of the movie. Like the entire rest of the movie, someone would go and open a door and be like, "Oh, this room's clear." And I'm like, "No, it's not." Like
They even teed that off in the beginning with the neighbor's house too, with
Yes.
like with stuff under the bed and that kind
absolutely,
of thing.
and they really built on that, and they incorporated into the jump scares, which is just really brilliant. So basically, and this is what's really weird is. Let's just get this out of the way from the start. This is a really, really stripped down movie. It's only 87 minutes long. It's not complicated. It's not a big cast. It's not big budget. It's not big special effects. And there's not a lot of story to tell. One of the things that really blew us away, we were just talking on the way here to record this, was how little backstory you get about any of the characters, right? So I thought all of that was really cool. But because it's a really stripped down movie, one of the things that really struck me was getting ready to record this, how many other movies it brought to mind. Like something this small shouldn't remind you of so many movies, but it reminded me of Wreck, and it reminded me of Paranormal Activity, and it reminded me of Conjuring. It shouldn't be reminding me of all these other movies with big budgets and different genres. It's not a found footage film, but it reminded me of found footage films, right? So like, it's just weird that it was able to get good pieces of other films and stuff them all into such a small package. It's almost like a magic trick, which is really
the way I kept thinking about this film was like, imagine like the horror film you and your friends try to make when you finally get your first camera. Imagine that but done masterfully.
Right.
Like,
Right,
but like people
and with great actors.
Yeah.
Unlike who you'd probably
yeah,
get
instead of like your neighbor and your sisters,
Right, right.
like it felt because it's such a small story too. Like it's not one of those in the world.
It's basically one setting.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think that works so well because now especially with like stuff like Infinity War and all these even other horror films, it's always this big catastrophic like huge story.
Yeah, The Mist feels like a epic mythology tale, like a moral for the whole race. This is just like, we're gonna scare the shit out of
And
you.
it's like, and what's great is it doesn't. They're not trying to weigh like the evil. Like once this evil gets out, it's gonna take over the world. It's just like, hey, listen, this shit's happening right now. You're gonna see what's about to happen. It's gonna fuck you up.
Yep.
And then we're gonna.
That's a good point. It's definitely got the bad genie effect. You rub the wrong lamp. And the evil genie came out, and it's your problem. It's not like the end of life where Calvin's gonna take over the whole world.
Yeah.
This is basically like if this problem's in your life, you got to deal with it, and you're probably screwed. But if it's not in your life, then
And it kind of starts off a little Nightmare on Elm Street.
it's streaming on my phone because I'm trying to look for cast names, and it's scaring the shit out of me when I look down.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry. Go ahead. You're saying.
But the fact that it was pulling so many other horror films, like
Yes.
you could just like.
It's pretty good. So here, let's get this synopsis out of the way because
Okay.
it's really small. So basically, it starts with, if I remember correctly, us meeting a woman who her husband it's early morning and there's banging on the wall because their neighbor's doing these constant repairs and it's pissing him off. And he goes over and yells at him. And he comes back, and then some bad things ensue that I'm not sure I want to spoil, but like some really bad stuff goes down. And then because it went down, police are called. So there's a detective investigating, but he knows, I guess he's out of his depth basically. So we end up with 3 paranormal investigators paired with a cop trying to figure out what's happening in this really tiny Argentine. It's in Buenos Aires, so like it's basically a 3-house triangle in this neighborhood where really bad paranormal events are happening, and then they're trying to figure out what these events are. And while this is happening, bad things are also happening in real life. So there's bad things happening supernaturally, but like an innocent kid just gets plowed down by a bus.
Right, he took off.
He got punted, and then we kind of follow that story, which really feeds into all the other insanity that's happening, and also becomes supernatural. So that's basically where this goes.
And I don't know, man. That intro, I just. When you start hearing things like in the walls and shit.
Yep.
Well, what sucked is we were watching it. Well, it doesn't suck. It scared the shit out of me. Is while we were watching it, you could hear people outside, in like the neighbor hit the wall or something. Something happened where someone banged a wall outside, and I jumped.
Yeah, my dog was freaking out at the door, and we opened the door, and there's nothing there. So like it was, but that's one of the glories of this movie. And I love when horror movies take things that are mundane and make them scary because you're going to run into them in your life, right? You're probably not going to run into a possessed daughter in your life. God bless you if you do. Call us up. We'll get you on the show and we'll help you out and give you some support.
Don't ever call me.
Don't call Nick. But if you are going to encounter thumps on walls and things falling off shelves inexplicably and whatever, and this movie takes those little things and makes them terrifying. And that's, I was telling you after I had watched this movie, at the end, my neighbor by a weird coincidence decided to like hang a picture on his wall or something. So like literally this movie ends and 30 minutes later you're hearing bang, bang, bang. And I'm like, come on.
Nope. And for that reason, I'm out.
Right, exactly. But this movie did a really good job of making supernatural things scary, but also things as simple as kitchen cabinets. There's a frightening kitchen cabinet in this movie.
Yeah.
There's frightening kitchen utensils in this movie.
It's got everything.
It's got a ton of stuff.
It's got everything.
So all of those were really, really good. But how did you feel? Let's dive into.
Can we get into spoiler? Do you want to get into spoilers?
And we're
now?
definitely
Okay.
Spoiler alert. Definitely we'll give a spoiler.
Good. That was a good like 20 minutes. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it and then come back. All right,
exactly.
So let's
come back to this moment.
Let's dig in now
and rejoin us. But one of the things that I really wanted to tease out of this movie and get your opinion on was the fact that I can't remember seeing a horror movie this good in a long time where we had so little backstory for characters.
Yeah.
So what did you think of that? Like, did that work for you? And do you want to see it more often?
I loved it because the way like this film was shot and like the pacing of it and the way they did the backstories. Well, actually, they did a weird thing with the backstories. Like there was backstories kind of in terms of like what's happened in the house before.
Yes.
But they didn't go further back, which is where I think most bad horror films would go.
Right.
They would start describing it. I personally love it.
Well, there weren't emotional backstories. The
No.
only backstories you got were backstories you needed for the mechanics of the film.
Yeah.
You need to know that the lead detective has a weak heart, right? Because that's going to come out later. You need to know that the detective had dated the mom of the kid who got run over by the bus.
Yeah.
Right. But we don't get scenes of emotional stuff between them. We know they used to date, but we find out when the detective's talking to one of the paranormal investigators. Another movie would have given us the scene where the guy and his ex huddled up and they were like,
they have this big thing.
they had this, right, exactly, to turn in the fucking notebook.
They just pick up the ball and start running.
They just go. Like every 5 minutes there's something scary in this movie and it's only 87 minutes long. So like they don't have time for a lot of that stuff. But I thought it was really refreshing.
I loved it because it's I think it was like Film Night or something like that. They described Jurassic Park like it feels like just like a day in the life of.
Yep.
And it happens.
Yep.
That's how this felt. It was just like, hey, we're here. It's happening.
I'm so glad you brought that, but because that's exactly what I'm talking about. Because my least favorite part of Jurassic Park is John Hammond telling his flea circus backstory at the table. I just get this wah 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 sound in my head when he's like, I raised fleas and then I just built this, multi-billion-dollar amusement park thing because my flea circus didn't entertain the kids enough. Fuck you. Like, it's fine. Like, everything else about the movie is great, but like, that's what I'm talking about is you don't need that backstory a lot of the time. And this movie really was like, never, we don't need that at all.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about by backstory.
Yeah, no, I'm glad it did that. And even the way it was like, I don't know, it just felt like you're in the moment with these people. Get the fuck out. And to go back on the backstory thing a little bit, like a worse horror film would give you the backstory and then put something in the plot there that they would then reference at the end. And you're like, oh, thank God they gave us information because then they were able to take this and say the person, the demon's name and do some dumb shit. But for this one, it was like really unforgiving.
Totally. And see, the weird thing is we live in the era of connected universes and backstories. So,
Yeah.
So, and origin stories and all that stuff. So I feel like it's really, it kind of blinds us to what used to be. But while you were describing that, I was thinking, you know what? It's Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's no backstory in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's just a thrill ride.
Yeah,
right?
it's demonic Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's just to scare the crap out of you. And there was no backstory in Night of the Living Dead. Like, what do we know about these people?
It's just happening.
It's just happening, which is what this movie is a throwback to. Now if you did Texas Chainsaw Massacre now, think about Texas Chainsaw 3, right?
Yeah,
that movie is like 40% backstory. The Sawyers and they're all connected, and it opens on a backstory for God's sakes, where they shoot the house and so like that's what I'm talking about. Is this is just it's not the only good thing about this film, but it's such a standout element.
Yeah, I can see this film. I'm gonna say now, this film's gonna go down as a classic.
I agree.
Like I haven't been that scared, and so now that we're talking about spoilers, first of all, the opening.
Yes.
When he hears the thumps, the wife goes into the bathroom. He hears the thumps. He goes outside. He starts screaming. You hear the static thing, and then you go in.
That was a great misdirection too, because think about how that scene was constructed. He heard thumps on the wall. He bangs on the wall because he thinks it's his neighbor. Mm-hmm. And well, actually, it was the neighbor originally, right? She was in the bed with him when that started, I think.
And they knew that they were doing reconstruction.
Right. Well, they're not doing reconstruction, but he thinks that's what's happening.
Yeah.
He actually was crawling in the wall and turning into a demon. But which is not Home Improvement, by the way. If that's your kind
it is to him.
It's not Soul Improvement. It's not Home Improvement. It's not any kind of improvement. But we follow him, and I love that the movie was patient enough out of its 87 minutes to give us 3 minutes of that. He goes out of his house, like in his underwear, like half asleep, 5 a.m, buzzing his neighbor's intercom saying, "You're an asshole. I'm going to call the police. Stop banging on your wall." And he comes back in, and the thuds are still happening. And he goes, "Wait a minute. that's not my neighbor. And that's when you're like, oh shit.
And then it's very reminding me of the scene with Tina in Nightmare on Elm Street where she's getting
Absolutely.
And the way just the way they even shot this film, like it just had this like, I can't describe this, like down and dirty feel to it, where it was just like it was like we're gonna show you something scary, you better be ready, you're not ready, okay, anyways, here we are. Now you're scared,
right?
And just seeing her fling against the wall back and forth,
that's
like,
what the thumps were, which is
so you see her going from one side to the next, there's blood everywhere.
Horrible.
And him trying to stop her is just
and I thought, so this is one of the things that, because I want to, at some point, we can even do it next if you want, I also want to parallel this a little bit to Hereditary, because I know that was our favorite of the year, but it's funny that you said that, because that I feel like horror movies have gotten better and better, and I think they always were better than the typical genre movie at this, but it's gotten better at showing us people, because you would think like Hollywood style, people rise to the occasion all the time, right? They it's the kid's trapped under the car and the mother gets super strength and lifts the car off, and like you rise to the occasion in movies. That's what they like to show you, right?
Yeah.
His wife in this scene is getting bashed back and forth in the bathtub against the wall. She is pulverized, like just brutal, right? And he's trying to stop it. And when he holds her still, it keeps happening to her head. He can't grab enough of her to prevent it from still happening. And he just collapses. He just collapses and lets go of her. And then she goes back to the bashing thing. And he's laying on the ground and he literally just goes, what is happening? And that's so real. Like the Hollywood way to do that is you heroically throw yourself in there and pull her down, and then
she comes back.
Right. Well, even if you're killing her, because they do kill people brutally in horror movies, but like in like the Platinum Doom style of bullshit horror movies, but what would happen was like he would heroically pull her down, whatever, and then he would say some sweet last thing to her and she'd die or whatever, right? That's how Hollywood would do it, right? But in this one, he was like, oh my God, my wife's getting beat up against the wall and I can't stop it. What is happening? And then it just ends with that, which is so good and so real.
Yeah, it's way better than the Platinum Doomsy. Like, whatever. I could just imagine a billion different ways they would do it, and it wouldn't feel as impactful.
Well, first of all, she would have been 40 years younger and totally naked, right? So, but yeah.
But what I really enjoyed was just how shocking, like a lot of like the cinematography, because I keep harking back to the cinematography. There's something about it where like you compare it to, I keep thinking of something like The Void. Like there's like really beautiful, a lot of horror films, they try to go for this like beautiful cinematography. Like, oh, look at this shot. Like you can, it's like that
Event
episode.
Horizon is dirty and violent, but it's beautiful. You could put it on a wall.
That's the thing. Is like there's something about a lot of people think that every film needs to be able to, because we did an episode like what's a frame you could take out from a film, put on your wall. There's not a single frame I would put from this film on my wall, right? And I love it for that reason. Because the way it's shot, it just makes everything so much more intense. And I don't know if I can even articulate why that is, other than just watch it.
Totally, yeah,
and,
for sure.
And going back to the and this is why I sort of compared it to Hereditary, was there's something shocking about seeing a positioned corpse.
What do you mean?
So like when they go up to the attic and they see Grandma kneeling down in Hereditary,
yes.
it's shocking because you're like, what the fuck is that?
You're talking about the kid here now, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So then cut to the kid. Yeah. When you see that kid sitting at the table and just the color of his flesh.
Yeah. So that part is like a monkey's paw situation. It's the kid or Pet Sematary situation.
Yeah.
The kid was buried and now he's back and you're not sure how he got back.
He's got those little muddy footprints.
He's
to the
definitely
house.
Dead, and the cops are like, we think we saw him move, but you don't know that it's really moving yet. But then it is. Spoiler. So he's so creepy. Like that is such a good.
That is a scary shot.
Now you love monster design. Talk about the monsters for a minute, because they reminded me a lot of what you see in like The Descent.
Yeah. So the neighbor's house, especially that guy. I remember when I was telling you, I was like, I think I saw someone post a GIF online of this. It was not this movie. it was some movie where the guy like unzipped his spine and like the dude was fitting into his skin or something like that.
Oh, weird.
I don't know what movie that was, but. The design in the neighbor's house was so good. How many films do you think talk about like a monster under the bed and then like show you the monster in the bed and it's actually scary?
Not many.
I mean, like Poltergeist did it with like the clown,
Totally.
but like this one, like is an actual.
Yeah, it's hard to do.
terrifying-
And we just saw a movie. God, what was it? I want to say it was like Ouija 2 or Annabelle Creation or something, where there was a creature under the bed and we saw the footprints come out from under the bed. I can't remember what scene that was. But this has the footprints in the house. It's got people
It's got the
under
monster under the bed.
it's
It
got monster
reminded
under
me a little bit of like, oh, that's probably why I thought about him. The GIF I saw had the one dude from the original Hills Have Eyes.
Oh yeah, cool.
So it was whatever he's in, but it reminded me of that guy mixed with the eyeball and the hands creature from Pan's Labyrinth.
Yep.
It looked a little bit like
Totally.
that in some angles.
Yep.
And it was weird because when you watched it, so to set up the scene, this guy starts hearing shit. His bed's moving. He's freaking out. So he gets a camera. He sets it up. He's gonna watch whatever it is. When he watches it on the replay, it looks way different for some reason because I think it's mostly the back of his head and his ass. But it's terrifying. He comes out like, and that's where the Paranormal Activity film like reference comes in.
Because there
like,
is a found footage moment in here because the guy's filming his own house trying to figure out what the hell's happening to him.
yeah, and it's terrifying.
So here's another trick. It's funny because I said monster design, but I think I'm realizing, and this may not be correct. Correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't think there's any monsters in this movie. They just look like monsters. They're all possessed humans.
They're all or like demonic. Well,
I don't think there's anyone demonic. I think they're all possessed humans, right? Like the naked guy he films in the cabinet, he's definitely a human. Walter in the wall's a human. He was.
There's
a
that
human.
thing at the end that crawls out with the green eyes. That's definitely not human.
When did that happen?
When the guy's having the heart attack and he comes out of the wall. The creature that kills the paranormal lady.
Yeah, that's Walter. That's the neighbor. Remember? She was talking to him. She said, "Walter, come out of the wall." That's Walter. I'm telling you.
But he's got like
he's
green
been transformed.
Yeah, he transforms
right.
into something
Right,
else.
right. Exactly. But I think they start as humans and become demonic or possessed.
I think that's right because she gave some backstory. She gave a little bit about the water thing.
Yep.
So I think it gets in you and then it morphs into whatever the hell it really is.
Exactly right. So, but that's what I mean is to have a monster movie with monsters in it and a monster on the poster. They give that away. Like that.
I love that
poster is a beautiful shot. Like of the
this
split
film
head,
is
like,
confident.
Yep.
They're like, we're gonna call it Terrified. Is it scary?
Right.
Yeah. Why is it scary? Well, because this guy's in it. And you're just like,
Well,
okay,
yeah, exactly.
I believe it.
Yep, totally.
I want to see whatever this like filmmaker does next. I want to see like just give him $100 million and be like, you can make as many films as you want,
Right.
and that because here's the thing is there are some effects in the film that. It's weird. Like I was looking at them, and like I knew some of them looked cheesy, but it did not matter because of
it
what
was how they
going
were
on.
deployed.
Yeah,
right. It was the perfect timing. It was the perfect like get you in the and that's the thing is like I agree. I think I did not like when the female paranormal investigator got killed. I liked how it was executed.
Yeah,
it scared me, but it looked cheap somehow, right? But it didn't matter.
Yeah,
it absolutely didn't matter because the weird thing was. By the time you're that deep into the movie has convinced you that there are bad things happening because she says it over and over again. Like, not everything you see is real, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like the leper in It.
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't like that effect either. I thought that effect was sort of cartoony to me, right? Mm-hmm. But it didn't matter because it was so well
terrified,
done.
Yeah.
And also like maybe that's just how I'm seeing it, right? Mm-hmm. The movie got in my head. It was like it had sold me on the fact that you're seeing the bad things only as wide as you can open your eyes to see them. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that looks cheap, but maybe I'm just not looking hard enough or
you're not looking at looking at the right direction, or
which is actually really great that it would be doing that it got that message across, and
But back to the design, it's all super well done. Yes. Like I love the fact that they gave this demon like green eyes. I'm like they went full fucking like this is a monster movie, like totally. Or like that creature.
And I also love that they could give you small glimpses of the evil creatures and it was enough. There's a scene after the detective's heart attack when he's sort of crawled his way to a corner, he's trying to recover, and he looks up and there's this bloody hand, and it was scary as hell. And it was just a hand, right? Like you didn't even need the other stuff. I mean, they show you his face and his eye a little bit later, but it was really clever at doing that Jaws Spielberg thing where you don't show you the whole shark for a long time, right? Which is great.
And the way they did the backstory, so it gave me like a little Pulp Fiction-y feel when they
That's
did
true.
the
There
flashback.
was a time jump. Yep.
Yeah, when they did the time jump. So it starts with like present, like you're in the now, and then it cuts to him in jail, and then they ask about what's been going on over there, and then you jump back, and so you already got your first story, which is the house with the wife getting slung back and forth in the shower, and then it hits up the other two houses. It hits up Walter next door, and then it hits the little boy story.
Yep.
And each of those. And that's a little bit of ghost story. So we're just
Totally right.
It's like
that's what I mean. Is it how did he pull off a short film with not a lot of narrative that still felt like an anthology film that, like you said, gave you 3 for 1?
Yeah.
And brings to mind like 24 of the best horror movies that you've seen in your life, all packed in like a little package.
But it's not even on the nose. It's not like
No.
other filmmakers would be like, they would put like Raimi on a license plate and be like, look, I love Sam Raimi. None of that in this. Fucking nothing. No. It just does it.
That's a great. That's exactly how they would do it too.
Yeah. And you don't have it doesn't. It just does it, and you don't even see it.
And so that's actually a good segue to one of the things I just wanted to talk about really briefly was the realism of it. I really appreciated the realism of
That's
it.
what the cinematography helped do.
The cinematography totally sold that. The way the actors played the characters totally sold that, because no one was chewing scenery here. They were just acting the way you would act. There was no one making stupid decisions beyond the obvious. Beyond the obvious, like, they all go into haunted houses, but they're paranormal investigators. Like, there's no way to do that job without doing that, right?
Yeah, it's part of the job.
Other than that, like, that's, it's very realistic. And one of the things that we were talking about watching it was it showed you things that I don't think I've ever seen in other horror movies, like, that would take the time to show you. So the little kid gets run over by the bus.
Yeah.
And then they show you the cleanup scene afterwards. Like,
Yeah.
they've got instead of the outline and the sidewalk, they've got people out there with hoses. They're washing the blood off the street. They're taking notes and doing the thing. Like, just how it lingered on that, not too long, but enough to be like, this is what happens when this kind of stuff goes down, right? Like, that, I just felt like the movie was weird for such a short movie to feel patient, but it felt patient.
Yeah, it had a slow feel to it, but it wasn't slow.
No, because there were scares every 5 minutes. But that's what I'm saying. It's weird.
It is just you're right. The whole motif they had of looking at it through a certain angle,
right?
It's just like this film's fucking with me on a different level.
right, exactly. And the funny thing is, like, they had the Lovecraftian crazy scientist guy in the one crazy guy, the Rostentak, the one who throws the chair at the end. But even he wasn't over the top. He just got that little fanatic gleam in his eye and started getting really excited about finding the spooky stuff. But it wasn't overboard, right? He wasn't like, there wasn't lightning and thunder and him shouting "It's alive" or whatever. He was just excited that they finally found something in their investigation.
Yeah, and those 3 actors, the first paranormal guy we meet, and then the one lady and the guy we just mentioned, they did such a stellar job at not overdoing it. And you and me, we were both discussing their character traits, and they didn't have to do no setup or something like that. We were just like, okay, he's crazy. The other woman, she believes it, but she's pretty reserved. And the other guy, he's pretty cool about it too. Yep. But they didn't need to do anything to explain it. They just were.
Yep.
And it was so refreshing. Like, this film, it's the horror film that knows its audience is not fucking stupid.
Yep.
It's like, you're gonna catch on. You're gonna love it.
Or alternatively, he just made it for himself, and he's not stupid.
Right.
Right. Like,
absolutely.
He was like, no one's made a movie. This kind of movie that I've wanted to see in a while, so I'm going to do it. Right? And he just did it, which is fantastic.
Crushed it.
So, I mean, that part is amazing. And I think I wanted to give a call out to the fact that we have this weird theme in our podcast where we like to identify when the horror movies are staffed with older people. I think it was Exorcist 3 that kicked us off on this, because the median actor age in Exorcist 3 had to be like 68, right? But this had, like, your heroes. You had 3 old elderly people, basically, not super old, but old enough to not feel like you're watching a Hollywood movie, right? And then a detective with a weak heart. I mean, there's no Rambos here.
No.
These people wouldn't be able to, like, if they were in a home invasion film, they'd all be dead.
Right.
Right?
I mean, it was us. Like
right. They have to do it by their experience and their knowledge and good decision making, and all of that goes out the window.
Not a lot of good decision making when you're messing with demonic
right.
or whatever the other
Let's give a quick shout out to the detective character. I love the actor. I love the way he played it. I love the way the character's written. But I just thought it was awesome how fallible he was. But and that turn at the end when he just gets away for a minute and then just decides, fuck it, I'm going to go burn it all down.
Love that.
Was amazing, right?
That's the most heroic Hollywoody thing they did. Yep. But it was pretty realistic. Like, at that point, he's like, no one's going to believe me. Just best to get rid of it.
Well, I think also, it was also best to get rid of it, but it was also, and it's very true to how an actual crisis situation would unfold. Your adrenaline's going, and all you're trying to do is make survival decisions. Plus, he had a fucking heart attack, right? So he went and recovered, and then the reason he became a cop in the first place kicked in. He was like, wait a minute, my partner's there, and the girl I used to date is there, and I'm just walking away from it. And you realize, you could see it on his face. He realized he didn't want to, but he realized I just can't walk away from this, right? I got to go take care of this because that's, and it was believable, and it wasn't overly heroic, but it was like whatever, but it set up my absolute favorite moment. Right?
Oh yeah.
So this to me, this was, and it's funny because we're building a list for our series in 2019 of our Not Bravo's list of
Not Bravo's Hollow Weekly's Top 100 Scariest Horror Movie Moments 2005 2018.
Yes, exactly. We're updating the Bravo Scariest Moments list, but this won't be on it because it wasn't. There are scarier moments in the movie, but I thought it was my favorite moment in the movie. Right, so like at the end, he splashes the whole house with gasoline, throws gasoline containers into the house. He's going to burn it all down and make sure all the demons die. And he trails the gas out the door, and he's trying to light matches, and they light up, and then they go out. And it's weird because the first time I watched it, if you look closely, the director framed it so you can see the edge of trees behind him, and they're not moving. So there's no wind. So your brain is figuring out that these matches should not be going out. But it's such a small detail, and it's been such a thrill ride up to there. You don't pause on it long enough to figure it out. And then the camera roves around to like his right side and looks back towards his left side, and you see this eyeless demon sitting right next to him, and every time he lights a match it just goes It was so good. And then he sees the demon, and the demon swivels because it's his former friend, but it swivels those like eaten out gross blood eyes over to him, and it just got like a what? He's like, look on his face. What? I'm not homies.
I can't let you do it.
Exactly. It was so well done.
Yeah, and I'm glad the house got on fire, and ending was pretty good. It had another little scare, but I like the fact that the detective just ran.
Yes.
So at the end, they're like, he's a fugitive, and you're like,
yep.
I don't blame him.
No, and he knew no one was going to believe him, which was funny because that was something they were struggling with in the whole movie, was who believed who. And it was really interesting when you think about it, because there wasn't much backstory. But if you think about it right, there was a really good karma element there. And the good karma element was when the detective comes back to the woman he used to date, whose son was killed, she comes into the house and finds him collapsed in immediate post heart attack on the floor, like almost dead.
Yeah.
And he looks up at her and he goes, "There's demons here. We got to get out."
Oh yeah, that's right.
And he looks at her and he goes, "You got to get me out of here. Take me to the hospital." And she goes, "You tried to bury my son, take him away from me, and you convinced everyone I was insane, that my son was, is a demon." And like, she was so pissed off that he had undermined her story, and it turns out he's in the same trap at the end. He can't tell anyone the story because no one will believe it. He has to just run. So he literally ended up in the situation she was in, which was, they never pointed out, but it was a really nice little...
It's one of those not treating the audience like they're stupid.
Totally. It was almost Tales from the Crypty, but they didn't have to point to it.
Jeez, another one to throw in the mics. Exactly. It's got a little bit of everything.
Which is absolutely amazing. So, highly recommended, yes.
It's Thanksgiving week. If you celebrate, stock up on... Get a big plate of food.
Yes.
put this on.
Yes.
Actually,
No.
yeah, put this on. Put this on. And, you'll thank us later.
Well, we started with a scientific study, so let's end with one. There's this one that floats around. I keep seeing it pop up every couple of months on the internet about how horror movies help you lose weight.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because the anxiety, you sweat and you tremble.
Right
and
on,
like
this is
whatever.
the time.
And The Shining is the number one, supposedly, when they
Calories burn.
Right, calories burn horror movie. But this movie, I feel like you should stuff yourself on Thanksgiving, go do your Black Friday nonsense, and then on Saturday, put this movie on and burn, I don't know, like a couple thousand calories.
At least.
Just being terrified, you'll be good to go.
There you go. Terrified. See, it lives up to the name.
Exactly.
I love it. All right.
Well, let us know what you think if you've seen it, or watch it, and then let us know what you think. We're really interested to hear. I think this movie went under a lot of people's radar, so we'd love to get your feedback on it. So message us on the Facebook page or comment on the post that you'll find there about this episode, or join the Facebook group.
Join the Facebook group. It's a party.
If you want to be in a party of 20,000 like-minded horror fans, just like you, join them and
might be a few demons in there.
let us know what you think. I'm sure there's more than a couple demons.
I hope not. Oof. All right. Stay scary, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye, guys.